appear that some of these activities are carried out either by the overt or covert support of the police. They look away and allow these things to happen. So you hear those allegations, and those are really very worrying. I also do agree that even the best equipped police in the world will not be able to function effectively in an environment where there is a conspiracy of rascality between the politicians and the communities where they operate. It's going to be difficult for the police to function. And so for me, we need to take a bit of a step back and begin to ask ourselves, why are our elections this violent? What is in this that is making it impossible for us to have a civilized election where people can come out and vote and go home knowing that nothing will happen to them and nothing will happen to their vote? Our electoral system is a victim of a fundamental and a dangerous level of distrust across all the divide. The citizens don't trust the government. The citizens don't trust the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission doesn't trust the politicians. The politicians don't trust the Electoral Commission. So it's a mixed bag of distrust, which is why we have to keep our ballot boxes, our ballot papers in the CBN vault. This is why we have to securitize the ballot paper, print it outside of the country. This is why we have to deploy police and army all over the country. It's just so it is a political culture that doesn't in any way promote trust and cordiality in the management of election. And what is happening, the violence we are seeing, the inefficiencies or inadequacies of the police in certain areas, the inefficiency and inadequacy of INEC in certain areas, all of these are symptomatic of a much more deeper problem. And that is a political culture that is twisted.
All right, so Jude, we'll go to break in a moment. Right now, Jude, don't worry, we'll come back to this and attempt to find out, look, what do we do to address these challenges? Welcome back to The Verdict. Let's get to our correspondent, Nkiru Ajogo. She's in Enugu. Well, yes, we've seen Ibrahim Adra talk about collation of results. Let's see what Nkiru highlights now.
It's a day after election in Enugu State and a Sunday morning, so it's assumed a lot of people have gone to their various places of worship to thank God for a peaceful conduct across the 4,145 voting locations in Enugu State. Good enough, we didn't have any incidents of ballot snatching, death, violence. It wasn't recorded anywhere at all. So it's something to thank God for, despite the fact that the INEC officials arrived in some places very late, in some places after 12 o'clock, in some places 2 hours late. The people were able to conduct themselves very well. They waited patiently. You will find out that in some places they already had their canopies set up waiting for the officials to come so that the process can begin. So it was really a peaceful process across the state. So we're currently at the INEC office this morning, and on the cases of malfunctioning of smart card readers yesterday and arrival of officials in some places very late, we spoke with the rec, and here's what he has to say.
There are few challenges with the smart card readers at a negligible level. Why I say that is because the percentage of report we deployed over 5,000 card readers, and the percentage of report of malfunction, I didn't get up to 40 across. However, we had local government technicians who had registration area technicians already kept on ground. Most of the ones that manufactured we quickly replaced immediately so that election goes on. But the truth of the matter is that nobody could say that he or she was disenfranchised as a result of malfunctioning smart card reader.
The results are yet to arrive, and the resident electoral commissioner also assured us that they are already sending out security men and sending out vehicles to those places where the results are ready so that they can begin to arrive here in the office for the collation to begin.
Well, yes, Nkiru Ajogo, our correspondent in Enugu. Well, good to see here that that went smoothly in terms of no reported case of violence at the moment on that. So that's the way to go, really. But now, let's talk about solutions, and perhaps taking that a little further, and I'll start with Jude. Jude, what do we do to make ballot box snatching or election day violence completely unnecessary?
Thank you, Chamberlain. First of all, I need to claim the success in Enugu. I'm from Enugu State. I'm excited that elections in my state went very well. So I need to put that out there. But to your question, Chamberlain, I think human beings by nature, we are prone to mistakes, and sometimes we're also prone to go against the law. I think the biggest, the most effective way of stopping electoral malpractices is ensuring that people who commit those crimes are punished. That, in my view, is the way to go about it. The recommendation of the Waste Panel for election offenses commission is a good one, because it then puts this function in a specialized establishment just for that purpose. But having said that, the truth again is that some of the crimes committed during elections are also in themselves crimes under our criminal code. There is nothing in our laws that precludes the police, for instance, for prosecuting somebody who burnt an INEC office for arson. There's nothing in our laws that prohibits the ICPC for prosecuting somebody for offering bribe. There's nothing in our laws that stops the EFCC from prosecuting somebody for moving an undue amount of cash from one point to another, especially when it flouts the money laundering rules. So I think our politicians have tactfully over the years outsourced everything pertaining to law enforcement around the election to INEC in terms of prosecution. And I think that is not proper. All the agencies of government already have existing powers under our laws to prosecute some of these acts carried out by people around the election. Killing somebody is murder. It doesn't matter whether it happened around the election or after election. And we should treat it as such. So for me, two things. One, we need to have this specialized commission to help us focus on these issues and ensure that they're followed up from the beginning to the end of it. Adequate prosecution and punishment for these offenses. Secondly, all government agencies saddled with prosecutorial powers for crimes should exercise those powers around the election, irrespective of the fact that these things happen within the election. We've seen it happen. The Dasuki prosecution is for money laundering and corruption, for acts done with funds for some other stuff that was used to influence elections allegedly. So we should do more of that. If we don't provide incentive or disincentive for criminality, it will continue to happen. That is the simple rule.
All right.
No amount of moral persuasion, no amount of pontificating is going to change this. If politicians know that if you commit an offense around the election, there will be consequences for it. For instance, if we have laws that say that when you bribe voters, you are disqualified from being part of the election, maybe this nonsense of vote buying will stop.
All right.
Laws must be in place.
All right.
Punishments must be certain. That, for me, is the way to go to stop this.
Mr. Alobi, what will your recommendations be? Mr. Alobi, what will your recommendations be in terms of us seeking a solution to make ballot box snatching or election day violence unnecessary?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, everything is about attitude. Attitude, how do we perceive our elections? How do we perceive power? How do we perceive other human beings? Attitude is very key and central. One thing is that man has a dual nature, the spiritual nature and material nature. We've allowed our material being to dominate our spiritual being, which bring out the goodness in us, the God in us, the goodness in us. We need to at least carry out massive education or democratic education, and also attitude of Nigerians to know that life is not just about money and power. This act of violence, we are being debased. It doesn't make us honorable citizens of this country. So I think it's attitude, and also, you see, laws may exist, but if those laws are not enforced, they have no value to man and society. The effective enforcement of those laws and make sure those laws are being prosecuted, those offenders are being prosecuted, is a holistic thing, not just one element. Issue of our character, the National Orientation Agency should carry out a massive education on democratic education, and then moral peace and peace building and peace and security. We need this. And then again, our security agencies, the police, which is the lead agency and the premier agency in law enforcement, should be empowered and given a motivation. Outside the shores of this country, the police have performed very well. And the Nigerians should also understand that they have a role to contribute towards peace building, towards security and safety of this country. They have a role to contribute towards making our election to be peaceful, credible, and transparent. So if Nigerians become conscious of their duty, but the point again in this country, we've emphasized on our rights and privileges. We de-emphasize on obligation. Where there's a corresponding right, there's also a corresponding obligation. So Nigerians should know that they have a duty. What are my duty? What can I do to contribute? Like in American, John Kennedy told America, do not think what America will do for you. You think what it can do to make America a great nation. That's what today in America. Service is key and central. Let us see and act service as a virtue, which everybody in Nigeria should try to demonstrate in the private and public life. If this is done, and let us see what we can do to add value to life, not destruction. And should achieve violence. Violence is a beastly attitude, beastly behavior. It's an ungodly act. So I think with this transformation of attitude and character, I think things will be better for this country.
Okay, let me bring this back to Mr. Innocent Chukwu, because a lot of things are contending here, one of which, as Chamberlain just mentioned, how do we get the ballot to be unattractive? Because right now, unconfirmed reports still suggest that this is still happening. It may not be as physical as what we saw in Osun State, where the INEC office was attacked and burnt. But there are unconfirmed reports that even the executives in states, some states in the northeast region, for instance, closer to the north central, where the executive has the capacity, has the power as the security officer of the state to even move around, especially when elections move into its second day, like what we're looking at from yesterday to today. A lot of things can happen between. How do we curtail INEC's ballots, or should I say now the people's ballots, from being compromised?
We heard on Friday, I think it was from Frank Mba, that said they had banned political officials and politicians to carry security personnel around. It would appear that was not enforced if they are still able to move around with their security detail. In a number of places where television cameras show that politicians voted, we saw a full accoutrement of security details. So the Nigerian police force needs to enforce that, because if they keep going around with their security officials, they can cause all these problems that we are talking about. But again, I keep coming back to the fact that logistics is critical. There are short-term measures that can be done between now and the next election on March 9. INEC, with the hindsight of how it performed in this election, knows that they really need to move those materials early enough to the polling booth. People were patient yesterday. In the next election, depending on how the results go, they may not be as patient as they were. The same thing with the police. They have seen the security threat map of Nigeria, and with the hindsight of what happened yesterday, they need to deploy more in high-density areas, and also in those high-density areas that have a history of electoral violence. Now, beyond the election, there is the importance and the symbolism of first 100 days in office. Whoever wins this election needs to address the institutional challenges facing the police, because if they don't, it will come back to haunt us on election day. And also the issue of West panel. Yes, it's dated now, it's 12 years. I think it's high time we had another commission that will collect all these reports about why is it that we can't get election running properly in Nigeria, when smaller countries, our neighbors across Africa, are doing it well. Senegal is going to vote today. By tomorrow or next tomorrow, they will have their result, and we'll be rejoicing. And we will still be here talking about granular issues that we should have addressed.
How quickly do you think INEC can move those ballot boxes, or the votes of the people?
A week or two?
How quickly can they move it?
Well, again, it comes down to trust and confidence. But I think now that all those materials should be in the states where they are supposed to be, at least 2 days before, and they shouldn't use the same uniform. In riverine areas, they need to go earlier than other states that were not involved in all these riverine challenges. So they need to take lessons from what happened yesterday. If they deploy the day before and it arrived late, then it means that next time they need to deploy 2 days before.
Okay, then how quickly can INEC move? Because we know that they are transmitting results electronically, but the ballots are still in the possession of INEC officers, in their INEC offices in the states. How do we prevent those ballots from getting into the wrong hands, especially at night? Because we had the elections yesterday, it went overnight, and some people were still voting at night. So that gives room for some kind of a gimmick that could be played by unscrupulous elements.
This is where it needs the cooperation of everybody, beginning with INEC itself. Why did the election stray into the night? Because INEC didn't start voting on time. And yesterday, they were the ones that extended it to 10 p.m. Now, if they had delivered at the time they were supposed to deliver for elections to start by 8, there's no way it should stray beyond 2 p.m., which was the deadline. So when they fell in their own responsibilities, other stakeholders take advantage of it and commit mayhem. So the key agencies that are critical in delivering credible election are, one, INEC itself. If it falters, problem starts happening. The police, and police in particular, because of institutional challenges. It cannot be solved between now and March 9.
All right. Well, we'll see what can do, but always good to talk solutions while we highlight the challenges. We'll have to thank you for coming on. Innocent Chukwuma, Regional Director for Foundation, joined us from, as you can see, our studios here in Lagos. And then from Abuja, we had Lawrence Alobi, who is the former Commissioner of Police for the FCT, and Jude Ilo, Head of the Office for Open Society Initiative for West Africa, Osiwa, Nigeria office. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming on The Verdict this time. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.